Okay, let's take a look at factoring and solving for x. And for this video, we're going to focus on quadratic functions. So when we talk about quadratics, we're talking about standard form, which is ax squared plus bx plus c, where a, b, and c are numbers, or a constant, or it could be a coefficient. So what we're going to do is, to use this kind of little diagram I made here, we're going to multiply a times c. In this case, a is 1, so it's just really the c value, 1 times 10. And then we're going to use that b term, that middle term. And then we want to figure out what two numbers will multiply to 10 and add to negative 7. Okay, so you can multiply to 10 in really only two ways, 1 and 10 and 2 and 5. And they both got to be negative in order for you to multiply to 10. So these two numbers work perfectly because they add to negative 7 and multiply to 10. So since I got my numbers, x minus 2, x minus 5, I can go ahead and factor this. And if I was just factoring, I would be done, but we're going to go ahead and solve for x here. And we're always going to get two solutions for a quadratic, unless of course you have a double root, but most of the time you will get two unique solutions. And in this case, we're going to get x equals 2 and x equals 5 for our first one here. Okay, let's try the next one. So if we look here, we have a is 1 again, so this is easy. We're just multiplying 1 times negative 28. And then we have 3 in the middle here. Okay, so that's our b term that goes here. So I need two numbers that factor and multiply to negative 28 and add to 3. Well, only a couple ways to multiply to 28, but the one I see that'll work is 7 and negative 4. So when I do 7 minus 4, I get 3. And when I multiply, I get to negative 28. So now I can go ahead and write this, x plus 7, and then x minus 4. Okay, so I go ahead and now I can solve again for x. I set each one equal to 0. So x equals negative 7 or x equals 4. Okay, and so notice as you get good at this, you'll see that this is just the opposite sign of here, so you can just skip this step here and just write the solutions x equals negative 7 and x equals 4. Okay, moving along. So now we got one where we don't have a 1 for a. We have a 3 here, so a is equal to 3. But before you go ahead and multiply this out and then try to factor, that will work, but if you see that you can divide 3 out of every term, then you should go ahead and do that. And if I look at this one, 3 divided by 3 is just 1, 6 divided by 3 is 2, and 72 divided by 3 is actually going to be negative 24. I think of it as 60 is 60 divided by 3 is 20, and then I have 12, which is 4, gives me negative 24. Okay, so now I can factor, and it's going to be much easier. Now, that 3 really can just divide out, okay? Because if you divide out 3, I'll just do it real quick here. If we divide out 3, right, it cancels here, but 0 divided by 3 is still 0. Okay, so now we can go ahead and factor what we have here and get our answer, and it's much easier. So we got negative 24, since a is 1 again, 2 in the middle. And I look at this, I think, okay, well, 6 times 4 is 24, so if I make 4 negative, that's going to give me, again, positive 2. So I'm going to go ahead and factor this, x plus 6 and x minus 4 equals 0. And then I get x equals negative 6. Okay, and x equals 4. Notice I just skipped that step since I know I'm just setting each one of those parentheses equal to 0. Because if either one of these is 0, 0 times a number is 0, or a number times 0 is 0. Okay, now I have my two solutions. I'm going to move on. Next one. Okay, so now we look here and we say, okay, well, a is not 1, so can I divide out 2? Well, I can't, right? So what I'm going to do here now is I'm actually going to multiply 2 times 3, and I'm going to go ahead and put that number over here in my multiply section. Okay, and then I'm still going to take that middle term, and I'm just going to have a little extra work here to factor this. So what multiplies to 6 but adds to 7? Well, they'd all be positive, and only one way to do that, which is 6 times 1. Okay, now instead of just going right to, writing it in factored form, we have to do one extra step here. We're going to take this 2x squared, we're just going to rewrite it, but here we're going to split this into 6x and 1x. So I'm going to rewrite this as 6x plus 1x, because that's equal to 7x, plus 3 equals 0. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to look for what can I divide out of these first two terms and what can I divide out of this in order to factor it by grouping. Okay, so the first two you can see you can divide out 2x. That's going to give you x plus 3, right? 2x times x plus 3 times 2x gives me 6x. And then I can't actually do anything here. I'm trying to get x plus 3 again over here. And really, if I just divide out 1, that's going to work. So I set this equal to 0. And then the last step here before we can actually solve for x is we're going to take these two terms and now write them in parentheses. And then we only write that x plus 3 one time. Okay, that's important. I think a lot of people think you have to write it twice now, but really it's 2x times x plus 3 plus 1 times x plus 3. Okay, so it is represented here. This is equivalent to this. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and solve. So 2x plus 1 equals 0. 2x equals -1, and x is equal to negative, here, let's write this up here. So then x is equal to -1/2. And then from here, I get my other answer, which is x equals -3. Okay, so now I got my two solutions, and I'm all done with this one. All right, last one. So let's look at doing that same process, right? I try to divide 3 out. It doesn't work, but that's okay, because what I can do now is I can say, well, what's 3 times -14? I'm going to put that number here. Well, 3 times -14 is -30, and then plus 3 times 4, which is 12, so it's going to be -42. Okay, and in the middle, I actually have a 1, right? If you don't see anything there, it's actually a 1. Okay, so now I'm trying to think about, well, what's going to give me -42 but add to 1? And there's not a lot of ways to multiply to 42 either. A couple different ways, but we're going to go with 7 and -6, right? 7 minus 6 gives me 1, and when I multiply it, it gives me -42. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to separate this 1x into 7x. Actually, let's reverse this because I think it's going to be easier. You can do it either way and it'll work, but let's do -6x plus 7x. Remember, it doesn't matter the order you write it because it's the same at the end anyway. This adds up to 1. 7 minus 6 is also 1. Okay, so now I'm going to take my first two terms, see what I can factor out, and my last two terms. Okay, and if you do this right, you should get x minus 2 for both of these. Okay, so the first one I factor out 3x, which gives me x minus 2. Then I factor out 7, which gives me x minus 2 as well. And now I can rewrite my 3x plus 7 together. And I'm going to have my x minus 2. And now I can just set each of these equal to 0 and solve for x. So I got 3x plus 7 equals 0, so 3x equals -7. So this one's going to be x equals -7 divided by 3, and you can just leave your answer like that. And then this one is going to give me my other solution, which is x equals 2. And now we factored this quadratic and solved for x.